Hey everybody, how's it going? This is James Pelton. Friday morning, I'm about ready to head out the door for Dubai. Going to Dubai to meet up with the GS Partners team. By the way, if you're part of GS Partners or you're curious about GS Partners, please let me know what questions, comments, things you have. I'm going to be going out there and I want to get as much information from them and about them as possible. So when I come back, I can be more settled in what's going on there. Today, we are going to talk about alpha shares, and I believe Tyler should be joining us here. But actually, I have most of the, he says his AirPods died. He will be here shortly. But I actually have a lot of the updates, so I can kind of just get us started. If you're in the audience, please hit the like button. Appreciate that. And let me know in the comments. Why don't I think of these? I should just have a list of questions to ask at the beginning of my AMAs that I can just always go to. But let's do, where's your favorite place you've ever traveled? Okay, I'm going to Dubai this week. I'm going to South Africa next week. Ohio the following week. So I've got a lot of travel here. But where's your favorite place? I'm going to be actually in London on Saturday. If anybody's in the London area, let me know. I'd love to grab lunch with anybody who's around. But today we are going to be talking about alpha shares, okay, and their mining company in particular. Let me kind of share the screen here. We'll have Tyler introduce himself in case you haven't seen them before. But what they're doing, they're going down to Paraguay, 3 cents a kilowatt hour electricity. You know, South America has very cheap electricity because they have kind of an abundance of power and the economies are not great. And so it results in cheap power, basically. So 3 cent kilowatt hour in Paraguay. They have someone from their team moving down to Paraguay to kind of head that all up. They're doing Bitcoin mining and antimony refining. And I don't want to share. We'll wait for Tyler for the announcements. For now, I'll just kind of talk through what's going on down there. You speak of the devil. You're not the devil.
How's it going? I'm the devil.
We were just talking about you. So welcome, Tyler. Thank you for joining. I was just talking through the project and what exactly you guys are doing. Do you want to just give a quick introduction? Again, there might be some people who've never seen you, never heard of this before. Do you want to just give a quick introduction of yourself and then we'll jump into some of the updates?
Sure. So as it shows on the screen, I believe I'm Tyler, and you can hear me fine, right? I'm using
a little bit sound loud and clear. Sound great.
Perfect. I'm using this little guy right here.
Wow.
But no, my name's Tyler. I am a co-founder of Alpha Shares. Been on the channel a couple times, so I hope a couple people are familiar with me here. But Alpha Shares really is just extremely focused on creating value in the NFT space and the Web3 space, and kind of offering to provide that value back to the NFTs that partake in our ecosystem and other people hold. And get a lot more into that soon, but because Alpha Shares was created as an NFT marketplace, our focus really isn't the same as other, big blue chip, top tier NFT marketplaces that are out there. Their focus is raise millions of dollars and give those millions back to, the very few wallets that garner pretty much 50% of all the trading volume across all platforms. And it's just a big fight between those big platforms to, hey, come over to ours, give me your trading volume. I want those fees. We love fees too, but we're not going to do it in the same way. So we've got some pretty unique things that we'll get into today.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I'm excited to talk through some of the updates. And just a personal note, so there are all sorts of mining companies popping up now, left and right. As soon as there's a good idea, something that's actually working, a lot of people jump onto that. And I want to say that Alpha Shares is one of the few. I'm not going to talk negatively about any other projects, but Alpha Shares is one of the few that is dotting their I's and crossing their T's when it comes to regulation. They're making sure everything is in order. They're running it like a real business, fully transparent. A lot of I've just been really impressed with that. So when I'm looking for which mining companies that I want to invest in, those are the things that I'm looking for. So that's all I'm going to say is Alpha Shares is one of the good ones. I would consider them one of the top that are doing it. So just wanted to say that on a personal note. You could say that, Tyler, but it doesn't mean quite as much coming from the project themselves. So
that is true.
So
I appreciate that too.
Yeah, you're welcome. So go ahead and let us know what are the updates. Again, I'll leave a link to the full AMA we did. We don't have to walk through the white paper again and all that stuff that we did the last couple times. But what are some of the updates? How has the mint been going? What are some of the changes? Just give us the deets.
Sure. So we have been on the stage here with you before talking about the Bitcoin mining operation, but we do more than just Bitcoin mining. It is very focused in mining with Alpha Mining Co., but we also do something called antimony refining. And so, really, our updates and our big updates today are going to be more revolved around the antimony refining side of things. But I do have a couple updates with the Bitcoin mining side of things because they're super exciting. On April 30th, Paraguay underwent a presidential election, and we were hoping for a certain person to win, certain candidate. That candidate did win. It's Santiago Pena. There's someone that Bert, one of our co-founders, who's down there. He's the one very familiar with South America. He's also our expert in antimony refining. He's very well politically connected as well. And he had been talking to Santiago Pena for a number of months prior to the election, with the hopes, obviously, that everything would go well and that he would become the new president, and he has. And so Bert was, out with his whole administration, partying with them after the election. And so we're really, getting some close ties to make sure that not only are we doing things legitimate, like you mentioned, on an international scale when it comes to securities, three-letter agencies, we're also making sure that we continue to push the boundaries of how successful we could be within Paraguay, because we are bringing millions of dollars there. We do want to showcase that we are foreign investors that are bringing, jobs to their economy. We are providing support for their dollar, so on and so forth. So that's very exciting. But even more exciting than that is really proving that we went to the right area. And that is that Bitmain, right after the election, this was on May 5th, the election was April 30th, they actually traveled down to Paraguay and they met at the Itaipu Dam, which we've mentioned multiple times. So the reason why Paraguay is such an opportunity is because it houses the world's second largest dam, hydroelectric dam. The first is the Three Gorges Dam in China. The second is sitting in Paraguay. And so because it is so productive and it is in South America, not in China, where China is the only country that uses the Three Gorges Dam. They might export, to some neighboring countries, but China's massive in terms of its consumption. But Paraguay is not. So Paraguay actually only consumes about 10 to 30% of the power it produces, which means that there's a massive abundance of power. And so Bitmain themselves said this past week that Paraguay looks like it's going to be the Bitcoin mining hub of the world, which we're super excited about because the manufacturer, the number one manufacturer in the world of ASICs, went to our hometown and said, this is the spot. And so that came after this newest presidential election because a lot of policies will change in favor of even further in favor of Bitcoin mining, which Paraguay was already great for it. But the new administration is very hot and heavy about using the power. And the last final point I'll give about why do they want to use the power? Well, if you didn't know, the Itaipu Dam was constructed by Paraguay, but it was funded by Brazil. And so since Paraguay didn't have all the money, well, they have an agreement with them where they are going to sell back power to Brazil at an extremely low cost because they funded it. And so that cost is actually $7 per megawatt, which is 0.7 of a cent per kilowatt. So
Crazy.
They're selling it to their citizens at 3 cents a kilowatt hour, which is about 5 times the rate that they're selling it to Brazil for. So it's in their best interest to sell it to their citizens and not let that sit and then get exported to Brazil. But that's not really the big point. That is big. That is big news. But we've already gone ahead and purchased our first miners. They're actually arriving. They actually are just arrived at port yesterday. So they're not Paraguay is landlocked. It doesn't have a port, but it arrived at the port in Argentina at Buenos Aires. It has to go through Uruguay and then it makes its way into Paraguay. So it's currently on its way. Miners, the cooling plates, everything for our first 1.6 to 1.8 megawatts, depending on overclock, that will be set up very, very soon. And so the focus now shifts towards the antimony refining side of things, which people are like, what is antimony? What is antimony refining? And so this is the unique kind of side of the business that we don't promote as much. And that's because, well, in Web3, everybody knows Bitcoin. Everybody knows Bitcoin mining. It's much more familiar to talk about. But the antimony refining side of things is really something that could be, we believe will be actually, for the dollars invested, more profitable than the Bitcoin mining. And so what is it? Well, I'm having a little allergies this morning, so I apologize for that.
No, you're good. You're
But
good.
perfect. Bitcoin, or not Bitcoin, antimony is a precious metal, a heavy metal that is mined typically as a byproduct when you're mining for other ores. So if you're mining for nickel, cobalt, even some precious gemstones, so like diamond, rubies, that is typically done in Bolivia. So Bolivia is one of the most mineral rich countries in the world. And a lot of countries internationally originally would go to Bolivia to mine. And so our co-founder, Bert, he actually was mining down in Bolivia from 2009 to 2015. Actually more like 2014. And it was very successful. And while he was down there, he started multiple businesses. One of them that he found to be the most successful was refining antimony. And antimony ore, again, is mined in Bolivia. But what happened in 2014 was Bolivia went national, or they went socialist, and they nationalized everything. So they kicked out all the international investors and all the international business that came in there under the pretense of, oh, we're going to take this under the government and we're going to run this. But we know that every time a socialist government does that, it never works. And so people just got kicked out and then everything got abandoned. So what we found out though is that who runs the mines there in Bolivia are the indigenous tribes, and they have sovereignty given by the Bolivian government. And so even though the Bolivian government might be pretty corrupt, socialist, doesn't really want to work with people, especially Americans, but the indigenous tribes, they do. And so the indigenous tribes have agreements and working history with Bert specifically. So we already have some agreements set in place, which a lot of them are more or less handshake until we start to get into some quantity. But it's to purchase ore from Bolivia. It gets shipped down the waterways over to our refining facility in Paraguay, which is very close. So if you look at a map, Bolivia is just to the northwest of Paraguay, and it's all connected with big waterways through the Amazon rainforest. And so big barges will go barge down the ore over to Paraguay, gets picked up on a truck, delivered to our facility, and then we refine it. And so I can, if you want. I mean, I'm monologuing a bit here. So if you want to ask a couple questions first, go ahead. If not, I can kind of hop into, what the process is and kind of what we just recently changed, which is really going to increase our output.
You know what? I'm enjoying the show. This is a lot of good info. I'm a holder, so how about you just keep rolling?
Perfect. Works for me. Hey, you can't tell me to stop talking unless you do.
Yeah.
So
you go. If I have a question, I'll raise my hand. Okay.
Perfect. So once you get that ore, which what we're looking for is 30% minimum purity or concentrated antimony ore. And like I said, it's typically mined as a byproduct. So if someone's mining for gold or silver, lead, whatever it might be, they end up testing that ore after. So as they go and blow up the earth or use big mining equipment to go and chunk up different pieces of ore, they test it. And if it's tested with what we want, we buy that. That then gets delivered. It gets crushed up into little, much smaller pieces, gravel, if you will. That gravel gets put into a furnace, and this is where things start to change. Originally, we talked about only creating antimony trioxide. So antimony trioxide is a very unique, it uses a very unique process to refine it. And the way that it's actually refined is through a sublimation process. A lot of people think this is fun to talk about because it's unique and nobody really knows what I'm talking about. I think it's fun to talk about.
You sound
But
smart. I mean, if nothing else, you sound very smart. So, I mean, that's always a plus.
I'll take it. I'm not a material scientist. I'm not a metallurgist. I know that Bert is. I hear a lot of this from him, and then I guess I'm good at regurgitating it. But what it is that it gets crushed up, put into a furnace, and that furnace has to get to a very, very high temperature. It gets so high that it actually sublimates the material, which means that it crosses the barrier from over one state of matter. So it goes from a solid immediately to a gas. When that happens, it's fuming. And so those fumes have to be pulled off of the material that's in the furnace and ducted through a specific ductwork system that then cools it down to a specific temperature at a specific place, which it then precipitates into a white powder and falls into these giant bags in a bag house. And that then is your antimony trioxide. It typically comes out to be around 87 to 90% purity, which that is still used. That is a straight end user compound, but it could also be further refined to 99% at different facilities, or even in the future, our own. But antimony trioxide is one of those things that you've had in your hands before. Almost every single person, I can guarantee that's listening, you have touched antimony trioxide before and you had no idea. And what it is that inside of pretty much every single wire that is in your house, is in your electronics, is in whatever runs electricity. I mean, look around me. I got a bunch of electronics. And so it's everywhere around here. And it's a fire retardant and insulator for different electronics. And so if you've ever taken a wire and you've just kind of chopped it in half, or you've cut down the middle, pulled off insulation, there's a little bit of white powder. Obviously, the thinner the wire, the harder it is to see. If you get a really thick gauge wire, you'll be able to see it no problem. That white powder is antimony trioxide. So it's used very, very commonly in the production of almost every single electronic. So with the increase in electronic vehicles, with the increase in electronics in general, that's not slowing down. Antimony trioxide is slated to have some pretty high demand over the next 10 years, especially. But now here's the good stuff and what we just recently changed. My left nostril has just wanted to kill me today.
But at some point, I'll monologue a bit and give you a rest.
Give me a little breathing time for my nose. No, this is really the juicy details. And so what we originally predicted in our white paper was that we were going to have one furnace, and that one furnace was going to be able to refine 40 tons of material. That refined material gets refined into about 2 to 3 tons. And so that one furnace, though, is what kind of limits or bottlenecks the capacity, the throughput. We budgeted in the purchase of a new furnace, and we also budgeted in a specific cost for the land. What we ended up finding out, getting into the nitty gritties, was, well, we found land that is twice the size for half the cost. So that's immediate cost savings of between $100,000 and $200,000. We originally budgeted up to $400,000 for 1 hectare, and now we're finding 2 hectares for around $200,000, $250,000. So we're very excited about that, because that means we can use the extra capital to go back into additional operations, more equipment, or even could go to the Bitcoin mining side of things to get another container and start to fill that up. But further than that is we also budgeted 1 furnace, and we budgeted a new furnace. But we did that because we don't know exactly, or at the beginning, we didn't know, can we find used equipment? Is it possible? But we started to look down that route, and we found that there's actually used equipment in South America. Some of it's actually in Paraguay. And so we found that we can find the furnaces that we need. You have to do something called refactoring, where there's just some bricks on the inside of the furnace that are very, very high temperature ceramic bricks, and those have to be sometimes replaced. And Bert's like, I've done this many times. It only takes about a day or two. It's grueling labor, but you can get it done. And what happens is you save probably 50 to 75% on the cost of that furnace, and a lot of time. When you buy a new furnace, it has to be constructed, it has to be delivered and shipped, typically overseas. When we're doing this here, not only do we get these sourced locally for speed and efficiency, but we also can now have 2 furnaces for the price of 1, which doubles our output. So we can create both this antimony trioxide I mentioned, but the second component of antimony that is also very, very actively in demand is just pure antimony ingots. And so we can go and take that antimony, instead of doing that sublimation process, we heat it up like you were refining gold. So you heat it up to a high temperature, it ends up melting the metal, and then you can pull that metal out of the slag through a chemical process and create little ingots. Oops, oh my gosh. And after you do that, you can go ahead and sell that, and that's a steel hardener. So if you see like steel beams, railroad tracks, I-beams for different construction materials, the liners of barrels, everything is using antimony ingots to harden the steel. So that is my monologue. I'll take some questions now.
No, that's amazing.
We've done a
that
lot
helps
recently.
really understand the process really well. So I actually appreciate that. Very interesting to me. I like science, and just the way that science works in with economy, to me, is really fascinating. So I could listen to this all day. I know, but yeah, let's get to some questions though. Actually, a couple questions that I had from my audience earlier, community. So you kind of mentioned that you guys are under budget. You're able to find the used furnace, so that's saving some money. These are the estimated rewards, which again, these are not like set in stone numbers that, hey, here's exactly what we're going to be getting. But how do you feel like these updates are going to affect these numbers? Are these still kind of the numbers you guys are shooting for, or do you feel like these are going to be changed, or not too much?
Well, I will say that we do pride ourselves in our ability to maintain, our legal side of things, where we don't, make promises of return. We're not, securitizing our dealings. I will even preface this here. At the end of the day, what we are is we're a business. We've used pretty much, and some projects will even use the term sacrifice of funds. At the end of the day, it kind of is that, and you can't say, "Hey, sacrifice your funds," and then still act like a security.
Right.
But what we've done is we have a straight sale. We sell our NFTs. When we sell our NFTs, that provides the company revenue. That revenue that we create from selling this product, our NFTs, uh, enables us to have capital to form our business. Our business is then created as a traditional business, but we want to make sure that it's a very cash flowing business, a very profitable business, because what that means is there's going to be enough profit for us to go ahead and take a big chunk of that profit at the end after we pay our taxes, do everything else, and buy wrapped Bitcoin and provide that back to anyone that holds our NFTs. And that's just basically the company gifting you guys rewards for being a member of our project. But when it comes to projections, yes, quite simply, we originally projected that we were going to have only about 39,000 terahashes of Bitcoin mining hash rate capacity, if you will. That since has been bumped up to 41,000. We also we're doing our calculations at, I think, $22,000 Bitcoin price, and Bitcoin's now closer to 30. So that also means an immediate uptick. So not only do we have more miners, more hash rate, but Bitcoin's also at a higher price. But now we also have two furnaces instead of one, which means even further. Absolutely. From a company perspective, we do think that our operations are going to be much more profitable than originally thought out.
Okay, very good. So, no, that's awesome. Awesome to hear. So, and I always appreciate you guys. Again, I come from venture capital, so I totally get you guys and just being careful about, projections and things like that. So maybe off stream, I will say what I think about projections on my own. I'm allowed to do that because I'm not part of the team. So we'll do some of that.
Yeah, I just can't say numbers, but I can say that you can see some numbers that what we gave people were what we expect our company to make, and then you can kind of look into, hey, if the company makes this and they take this, what could potentially be left over to be given as Bitcoin rewards. But at the end of the day, it's I really want to protect not just our team, but I want to protect you guys. Anyone that's going to be buying into these NFTs, you are just buying an NFT. When you buy this NFT, you have no expectation of return, but at the same time, we want you to know that it's in your best interest to make sure the company is successful, because if it is, well, then we just give back Bitcoin to people. And Bitcoin's not a monetary, it's not a security, it's a commodity. It doesn't have, financial transactional volume just yet under legal precedent. I mean, everyone knows you could pay for stuff in Bitcoin, but luckily, still regulations or regulated bodies haven't said, oh, if you take payment in Bitcoin, that's the same as US dollar. It's not. I hope that it never is, because we love what we could do here right now.
Yep. Nope. Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. Two more questions. I will get to audience questions. We got a bunch pouring in. So audience, yeah, we'll get through as many of those as we can, as always. So we heard a lot about the good things and what's been going well since you guys kind of got started. It sounds like just good news, good news, good news. Has there been any bad news, any hiccups? Again, what are some of the risks that you might see? I like to get kind of the other side of the coin.
Absolutely. Well, when I think about it, I'm typically the person too that I'm like, where are the risks? Where are the downsides? What pitfalls have you had? But the way that we kind of framed this from the beginning was really conservatively. So we really wanted to make sure that we provided an opportunity that was, again, conservative. We're not going and lying about the things that we say that we have. We're not going in and saying that, oh, we are going to have X capacity, but then when it comes down to it, we have Y, and it's half that. We also didn't know exactly what to expect with the political side of things. So this election could have gone the other direction. This could have gone, to a much more conservative. Well, this party is very conservative, but it could have gone to a much more, backwards party. So a party that didn't want to facilitate Bitcoin, didn't want to use the power grid for Bitcoin mining. And so that could have been an issue, but luckily that didn't happen. And instead, the opposite effect is actually extremely beneficial to us. And so there's really no downside when it comes to Paraguay. We have increased our hash rate, so there's no downside there. We have now doubled our capacity for antimony, so there's no downside there. One thing that I will say is that Paraguay, South America in general, and I actually was just talking to another personal friend of mine that goes down to Peru often because he runs a nonprofit down there for bringing drinking water to people. And he explained that he has the same effect, or has the same experience, and that's things take forever in South America. So
Right.
even though we're coming in with cash to buy our land, to do our improvements, it still takes a long time. So if we were in the United States, if I came in cash and I wanted to buy a facility, I wanted to buy land, I could buy and close it the next day. The title transfer is as easy as, okay, the funds have been moved, and the escrow company goes and says, here's the title. With us and down in Paraguay, it's not as simple as that. And that's just because it's a second world country. It doesn't have all of the different complexities and nuances that the United States has. So that's the one thing that I would say has everything's lining up really well. It takes a long time for miners and other things to ship internationally, but at the same time, I wish that we had already had our land by now fully improved. We are right there at this point. We have our construction company ready to go on the land that we are currently negotiating and putting money down on soon. Um, so we're extremely excited. I
Yeah.
will say too, we did get connected with a company down there that has about 25 current megawatts of capacity. So another mining company that we got connected to our supplier. So our supplier was like, "Hey, I actually know about one other project out in Paraguay. You should meet up with them.
Oh,
They're
cool.
awesome." Bert's actually going to the Bitcoin conference in 6 days on May 18th with them. So with our supplier and with our partner down there, which they have built out so much that they now have full infrastructure vertically integrated in their brand. So they have their own construction company, they have their own repair facility, and then they have their own mining facilities. So because of that, we're actually working directly with them since they've constructed their own, I think, 4 facilities now over the past 6 years. They're going to construct ours because they know exactly what to do and they know how to do it. So they're ready to go. They're on standby. The moment our land closes, it'll be about 30 days of construction, and then our facility is up and running.
Very cool. No, that's pretty awesome. I mean, and I was just thinking, yeah, it's you can't have your cake and eat it too. So like being the second world country, the advantages are you get the really cheap power. You're not going to get that in any first world country. But the disadvantages
Yep.
are like you said, it's not as organized, and so like yeah, they're not used to just coming in doing big real estate deals, things like that. So I
Yeah.
totally it makes a lot of sense. Comes with the territory. Other
Absolutely.
question. Other question I wanted to ask about is, do you want to talk about how the mint's been going? Has it been going kind of as you expected? I know people have been asking what happens if you don't mint out. Are you still going to move forward just the same way that you're planning on? Just tell us a little bit about how the mint's been going.
Sure. So recently it's been going really, really well. We did, there's in every mint almost, unless you have just an extremely awesome community, which we do, but it's just growing and it's a bull market. And for one, we're selling $1,000 NFTs. There's 3,000 of them. I mean, to do easy math, that's $3 million. So it's not easy to raise $3 million. We raised over 1 million in the first day. We then continued to push forward and try and mint out with our partner projects, allocate some, which those allocations will be coming up here really soon. But we only have 600 NFTs left. You can see right here, 602. At the beginning of this week, I think we had about 650. And so just within the past week, we've minted about 45 NFTs. And that's because we're really pushing with a new marketing push around the antimony side of things. So we promoted the Bitcoin side heavily, but now we're going and educating people on antimony, its use cases, why Alpha Shares is going and refining it. And we also added some other really fun things like a Zealy quest within our Discord, and driving activity and engagement. And so because of that, it has really ramped up the speed of this mint. I am doing an OTC later today with 50 NFTs. We've got another 25 NFT OTC, another 50 NFT OTC, and potentially another 30 NFT OTC. And then we also know that there are a lot of people waiting. They're like, I'm not going to buy my second one until there's 300 left because they want to get those last few. And so we're going to see how quickly, as we start getting to the end here, how quickly they start minting out. But we're very, very excited. Let's say, which for one, we're not letting this not mint out. Like this is going to mint out. It's in everyone's best interest. But let's say it didn't. If it didn't, guys, we already have the money for our land. We're ready to pay for it. We have the money for the construction. We already have the Bitcoin mining operation almost being put together at this current moment. We're waiting on all the equipment to coincide together in Paraguay, and then it gets set up and turned on. So nothing is stopping us. There's no reason. Just looking yesterday, spot prices of Bitcoin and Bitcoin hash rate, it's really all over the place. But yesterday, for about an hour, looking at our Bitcoin mining calculators, our 252 hydro-cooled S19s looked like they were actually going to be doing, and we'll see how long this holds for, but between $80,000 and $100,000 a month in profit, where originally, because of Bitcoin price and because of network difficulty, it looked like it was only going to be around 60 or 70,000. And so we love to see this as the equipment's starting to arrive, everything is looking really up.
Yeah, that's awesome. And actually, I will say I just minted one. So actually, this number is probably lower than that. It just must update every so often or something like that, because I just minted one and it still says 602. So yeah,
Interesting.
gonna run out eventually.
Very soon. Very soon.
Yeah. I was going to ask too, have you had much, again, my mind, and maybe we could talk about this off air too. Not everybody doesn't need to listen in on this necessarily, but I was just thinking, I would love to get non-crypto people involved with this. I saw the mint with credit card, and I know there's a lot of non-crypto people who are looking for returns like this, and I have you guys had much success reaching non-crypto people, or do you have a marketing plan for that or anything like that?
Well, we don't necessarily have a specific marketing plan for that. I mean, obviously, being so integrated into Web3, it's a lot easier to, go ahead and promote to our current audience, and then a couple degrees of freedom away from them. But when you find people that aren't within crypto at all, or they're just straight Web2, there are really a number of degrees of separation between our current community and those people. Have we found a few? Absolutely. Have a couple people told friends and family, and they've probably gone and minted with a credit card? 100%. We've heard stories. But our focus really isn't that just yet. I do think that as we get into the tiered base round, so just Alpha Mining Co., the non-reserve, those start out much more cost effective. And so I think that if somebody's not familiar with crypto, they are probably pretty unlikely to mint $1,000 NFT. But if they aren't very familiar, but they've got $250, much more likely to go ahead and mint that NFT. But I did mention we are going to the Bitcoin conference on the 18th. That is going to be where we promote the opportunity. We're going to have some business cards. We're putting up a landing page that's going to be much more business focused. So everything right now is all about NFTs, about alpha shares, about our community. We're going to go ahead and create a landing page that's more for an investor. So we are looking potentially at expanding privately, which will just help everything else out here. If we prove the model here with the few million that we raise, well, who knows? Maybe we're going to have investor interest, especially with Bitmain going down there saying Paraguay is the Bitcoin capital of the world.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
we
crazy.
very well may take in some additional capital, increase our farm. There's no reason not to.
Okay. Nope, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, traditional investors will be a lot more interested when everything is settled. They can see the hardware in place. They can see it running, all that. Us degen crypto people, we're okay with whatever, We're like, hey, that's all right.
Willing
It'll
to
work
take the
out.
risk,
Yep.
but it's going to be quite rewarding.
Yep. Totally agree. All right, let's get to some audience stuff here. Let's see. Really appreciate you, the Warfight team, and Alpha Shares, what they're doing for the DeFi space. I'm in both projects. So yeah, again, we went through such a time of just no revenue and just tokenomics and Ponzi, and so it is good. I'm always appreciative of anybody that's building something that's actual revenue in the space. So thank you for that comment. Is that financial advice, JP? No, I give no financial advice, but I will say if you're wanting to invest in mining projects, just be careful. Okay. That's all I'll say. Be careful what you're investing in. Okay. It's easier to promise things than it is to deliver on things. And so just be careful. Just be careful. That's all I'll say. How many
Just
NFTs
do your due diligence.
do your due diligence? Yep, exactly. How many NFTs do you have, James? I believe that I have 3 and just minted a 4th. So again, I am kind of the type of person to like dollar cost average into things. So, in another week or so, if there's still some remaining, I'll probably mint another one. A lot of times I'll look at my wallet and say, hey, I've got an extra 1,000 USDC. Let me go ahead and mint. That's just kind of the way I do things. I don't really plan
What
stuff
a first world problem to have, James.
out. Hey, I got an extra $1,000 sitting around. Yeah, that's you're totally right. We did have Decade Investor here. So one of my goals is to get Decade Investor to buy an Alpha Shares NFT. He sticks with stocks and index funds and options trading and things like that. But Colin, we're going to get you to mint an Alpha Shares NFT. That's one of my goals.
Hey, whatever questions he has, I'd be happy to answer them. I know that there are some investors specifically, like I mentioned, we have a big OTC later today, actually. And that investor was somebody that popped in. They wanted a little bit more, in-depth information. So even anybody here, no matter what, you're buying one NFT, you're buying 100. If you want to have a private call with me and you want to ask more direct questions, I'm always open for that. We're an open book. Everything's transparent. We're never going to have a question we can't answer. So I'm here
Yep.
for you, Decade Investor.
Absolutely. We'll get him. We'll keep working on him.
Let's do it.
Yabonks is here as well. So welcome, Yabonks. If you don't follow Yabonks, I want everybody to click on Yabonks' name and follow Yabonks. Subscribe to him on YouTube. But the antimony refining engineering and process is fascinating. I've been going deep on it. So yeah, Yabonks will have more info on that.
Sweet.
Steven says, can you talk about hosting, please? Is there any interest from Alpha Shares to fast track this given the potential returns? Do you want to talk about that, about potential hosting for other people? Again, that cheap electricity, very tempting for people.
Absolutely. So, well, first I will say, because we are doing, this might be our first host, is we're doing a bounty right now, actually. So there's a couple people that that hold 15 of these NFTs. I know that's a lot, but what we're doing is we're raffling anybody that holds 15 of our AMCR NFTs will enter into a raffle to win actually a free and hosted S19 XP 144 terahash ASIC miner. So that's about $300 a month just from that miner. It's a $3,500 or so miner. And so we're going to give that away for free and host it for somebody that holds 15 or more of our current NFTs. So that might be the first hosting option that we do, but we are going to quickly expand into hosting. And so with our current operations and with our current land, we actually are waiting right now just to even go a little bit more in depth for everybody here. This isn't even something that I've talked about in our previous AMA. The current waiting period right now on the land is waiting to get back our power agreement with the specific land that we're looking at. So the moment we get that agreement back, that's when we go and purchase the land. That's the only thing we're waiting on. And that power agreement is for 6 megawatts. So as I already mentioned, our current container is only 1.6 to 1.8 megawatts. So we're over allocating how much power we need because we do expect that in a quite immediate sense, we're going to acquire another container and either have that for our own hashing or for hosting. So hosting is a big deal. I do think that not only hosting for partner projects, but also hosting for you guys in our community. If you have miners that you want to ship down to us, I'd love to do that. It's a little bit of process. We have to make sure that we get everything first set up. We got to get a new entity set up and structured because it's completely separate from the business of Alpha Mining Co. But it will happen, especially with the additional support of Paraguay. There's no reason we're not going to do it.
Okay. Yeah. And probably once the process of, shipping the miners and things like that, that'll probably get more ironed out over time. That's usually how business works, is you do it a little bit and then over time it's like, okay, use this shipping company and ship to this place. And then and it just gets easier over time.
Exactly.
Let's see. Augusto says, I live in Paraguay. So nice to hear good news from my country. And yeah, honestly, we didn't talk that much about that, but this could potentially, depending on how Alpha Shares grow, this could be very good for Paraguay as well. Like you were saying. So yeah, it is cool to kind of try to help, some of those second world countries as well.
Well, I love that we're ahead of the curve. Just honestly, it seems almost coincidentally. Yes, it's because our co-founder Bert, he's very familiar with Paraguay. His wife is Paraguayan. I went down and traveled down there with him in October to first check it out, and it almost seemed though coincidental with the timing here because if it wasn't for this new administration change, we wouldn't now see. I'm assuming there's going to be thousands of megawatts of new interest coming down to Paraguay for hosting because again, we just had Bitmain themselves there. And so the big players, they're doing 10 to 50 megawatts at a time. And if this is going to be the hub of Bitcoin mining, well, we're going to see a lot more interest. And so being ahead of the curve, making sure that we're there first, we're up in hashing, we're setting that precedent. We might not be the biggest in the end, but we will grow with the rest of the people. And Augusto, I'm very happy to be in your home country.
Okay, very cool. When will these Reserve NFTs start generating rewards? You talked a little bit about that, but when do you guys kind of think payouts will start?
So we are going to Or we're hoping that everything will be up and hashing within the next 30 to 45 days in terms of the Bitcoin operation. The antimony operation might take a little bit longer. So we'll see how things time out. But I'm sure that we're going to let the container run for probably 20 to 30 days first to make sure that everything's working well. We have to obviously set up our miners in each pool. We have to make sure that there's no troubleshooting issues or maintenance problems. We'll probably get to know that within the first week or two. And so then we'll make the decision. Do we want this to run for one more week to cover a couple expenses and then start payouts, or what? We're not going to do, we've been asked this before too. A lot of other projects will be, I'm going to pause and not give rewards for the first 3 to 6 months. We want to recoup costs. You want to hold back funds for upgrades. We want to make sure that you guys start seeing rewards very quickly. So it won't be like that. But we obviously have to make sure that we can't just turn them on and be like, hey, check your dashboard. It takes a little bit longer than that. But we are right there, guys. We are right there.
Okay, very cool. We got questions pouring in, so we'll get through as many of these as we can. Again, if the team is very good about answering questions, so if we don't get to your questions, hop in the Discord. They'd be happy to answer all these. Let's see. What do you expect rewards to be given as? You think wrapped Bitcoin or stable coins? What do you guys kind of expect on that?
It's going to be wrapped Bitcoin. So everything that we do is going to be rewarded in wrapped Bitcoin. And that is because we want to stay legally compliant internationally and even within the United States and Canada. So if we were giving away stablecoin and we were really kind of creating a security out of this, well, that would be an issue. And so what we're doing, again, as I stated in the beginning, our company is going to cash flow. It's going to make very good money. And then we're able to take a substantial bit of that profit that's left over in our accounts, buy wrapped Bitcoin, and send it to our contracts for you guys to claim.
Okay, very good. James, when are you going down to Paraguay for your live stream? We'll have to work that out. I would love to do that. I think that would be great. So probably once things are up and running, we'll talk more about that. But I'd love to get down there and practice my Spanish as well, and then we'll get some video of the location there. Steven says, really need to get Hydra Whales over to your site ASAP. And you guys are working on a partnership with Hydra Whales and a couple other mining companies as well, too, for hosting. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, I obviously don't like to count my chickens before they hatch or anything. And so there's nothing tied up. I won't put words in anyone's mouth, but yeah, absolutely. We're talking to pretty much every big mining project that's out there because most of them are operating at around 6 cents a kilowatt hour. And so if we can offer them substantial cost savings, then it makes sense. And so I talk to Sam pretty often. We talk every single week. I would love to be able to host all of their miners. I know that it might take a little bit longer than we all think, just because, for one, we have to get set up. And then even further than that, they have to scale out of their current hosting facility. So you signed contracts and agreements. Once their agreement comes up and expires, we can take over their equipment. It does cost money too. So, it's not an easy decision. You have to go and pull out all your equipment from another hosting facility. You have to ship it, and then you have to reset it back up. So there's a lot of costs involved there. The cost savings make it worth it, but we got to get a little bit further down that road. But 100%, if we can offer the best hosting solution in the world to our partner projects, we're going to do it.
Yep, absolutely. Let's see. Some of this we talked a little bit about. Patrick says use the furnace heat to generate more free electricity. That's an idea, maybe for an engineer.
This would be interesting. Yeah. Well, you can do that, but we'll see how efficient that could be. I
Yeah.
don't know. That
Right.
sounds like an
Who
interesting
knows?
thought process.
Who knows? Randy says, tell us about if there's a dapp for mining. Which I assume there is if Randy's asking.
Of course, Randy's asking. I was actually going to say, Randy, would you mind, since you're in there, because I think that you have a closer access, maybe DM, did you send it to me? You didn't. Maybe DM James real quick with something he can look at for the dashboard. I'll see if I can find it as well, and you can pull it up. I know that we had some sneak peeks in our Discord that Randy sent. I just got to find those really quick. But yes, we have a new dashboard that's coming up. What we really want to pride ourselves in is having the most effective and information heavy Bitcoin mining dashboard that you can find. And so I found them here. I'm going to copy this for you and send this over to you real quick in our group chat. And then you can pull that up however you want.
Okay.
but
waiting
we
earnestly. Okay, I see it.
sent it. I got a couple of them. And of course, I go back to my Discord and it doesn't go anywhere where I just was scrolled to. So now I got to
Right?
scroll all the way back. I've got
Technology.
one more that I'll send, but we really want to make sure that this is as information and analytic heavy as possible. Um, oh, I passed it, I guess.
Well, here's at least
Do
a
you have
little
some?
bit.
Yep,
Let's
yep.
see if I can make that bigger. There we go. That's a little bigger. That's as big as it'll let me go. This is kind of the sneak peek of what it's going to be looking like.
Yes. So I got one more here. And then we'll see if the other one, I can get it as well. Because what we really want to show here is that we're going to have multiple containers. And so we're going to have both, our current container with 252 miners, but we're also going to have up to 4 or 5 different containers as we get through the base round. And so as we have those containers, we want to create different APIs and structures so that through the dashboard, you feel like you are the owner of a mining farm where you can see everything that you need about the different containers that are under your belt. You can see, I've got one more here that's actually going to show off the containers and stuff. And you'll be able to see exactly how much wrapped Bitcoin we have totally, or how much Bitcoin rather we've mined. It will be converted into wrapped Bitcoin. You'll see what the power draw that we have, what the power costs are. You'll be able to see the uptime. You'll be able to see the different analytics in terms of how much Bitcoin has been mined over X amount of time, what our performance fee was, and what we're able to then go and provide back to the community. It breaks down what our expenses will be in terms of utilities expense, further than power, and anything else. And so we really want this to be, and we know this will be because we've done a lot of research on other projects out there, this will be the most robust, and I love that word, but it'll be the most robust dashboard that you can find because information is key. So
Absolutely. It's looking good. It's looking good. This is a novel idea compared to my projects, but building the dashboard before you start selling the NFTs. I do it the other way around. So kudos to you guys for being more prepared.
Thank you.
Let's see.
Well, we're almost there. We're have to use that very, very soon here.
That's true. That's true. It's exciting. Hey, James, I'm also an Alpha Reserve Co. NFT holder. Great, Alif. Welcome. And thanks for being part of it. Yabank says due diligence. Yes. Amen. As you can tell, I'm far behind on the comments. We were talking about that a long time ago.
I will shut up now so that
no,
you
you're good. You're good. It's very informative. Maybe Colin and James can strike a deal. Decade Investor gets an NFT if James trades options. There you go. Colin, I'll message Colin. We'll see if we can work something out. That would be amazing to get him. He's been kind of non-crypto, non anything that's not stock market. So it'd be great to get him branch out his horizon a little bit.
Well, when you find your value, you go hard on it. So
that's right.
We do the same thing. I don't trade stocks, so I can't say anything about that.
Yep, that's right. James, what do you think based on all current data, the monthly projections for each NFT will be? I think, for example, about $250. So again, yeah, I know the team can't say anything, but again, just based on kind of what we heard here today, they were not estimating, but they were projecting, we might say, maybe about 10% a month. And with the news, 15% a month. I mean, you don't know for sure, but that's kind of the direction that I would be looking. I always find better to under promise, over deliver. So better to say, 10% and then end up with 12% than to say 20% and get 15%, so, but I think we'll get above 10% a month. It seems like based on the numbers that I see, but again, you just don't know. There's a lot of moving pieces that could happen as well. So just want to be careful with that. Is it cheaper to mint with a credit card since Ethereum gas fees are very high right now? Probably not. The credit cards are probably going to have a more significant fee than the Ethereum fees. So the credit card is simply, especially. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I will just say about that. I do think that the credit card processing, it does take into consideration what the fee is. So you're right. I think it's going to factor the credit card fee and it's also going to factor the gas. So don't think about it that way. But if you are interested, we are actually offering OTC across any chain. So any chain that you want to send funds on, we'll go ahead and mint your NFT for you and cover that gas.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, if you're not wanting to get the, 30, I think when I just minted, it was $19 in Ethereum. So I mean, that's on $1,000 NFT. That's really not that big of a deal. But if you're wanting to, save that, yeah, I saw somebody say Arbitrum. You could go do, and you can OTC. So let them know about that. Steven says, ask Tyler what he's been playing on Steam in the background. What's your Steam game
That
of choice right now?
No, that was actually I rarely play anymore, and then last night my brother was like, "Hey, let's play Rust," and I haven't played that game since like probably 2014, and I got on for about 45 minutes, and I got very angry, and then I got off. So
There you
I
go.
did notice too in my background that it's still up, but no, I honestly I've rarely played it. If I look at I've got 3 hours on record, so
Okay.
not as much of a gamer as I used to be, but I wish I had more time. But
Yeah.
maybe that'll come, when we're just
Right.
eating pretty off of the Bitcoin that we're mining.
Right.
So
Once
we'll see.
everything's settled, this is definitely going to be the busy time for you guys, and hopefully, yeah, it'll calm down over time.
Yep.
Um, I'll just bring this up. What do you think about Famco mining from Truth Seekers? I'm not going to say too much about it, but I would just say do your due diligence. Be careful. I will say that the Alpha Shares team has been much more transparent and has arranged things business wise in a better way. That's all I'm gonna say about that. But do your due diligence for sure.
All I'll always say too is that if they can pull it off, that'll be fantastic, right? I'm not sure. There are a couple things that raise some questions. If they can answer those questions, I mean, that's all we need, right? As a community, we want to make sure that the questions that we have when we do our due diligence, if they can be answered confidently, then there's probably something there. So we'll see what ends up happening. What I can say though is that no matter what, we will always be the world's most effective and efficient hydroelectric mining power project. So the most renewable and cheapest power that you can find. And so that's the thing that other countries, you might be able to find cheaper power, but for one, the uptime isn't there, and it's also not renewable. So that's one thing we really pride ourselves in is our ability to have purely hydroelectric power.
Yeah, and also I want to say too that no one wants anyone to fail. Like Alpha isn't sitting there, oh, I hope Famco fails or anything like that, because you can see some of the other companies that might consider Alpha Shares might consider as competitors, Hydro Whales, Ace Miners. I mean, they're not. They're treating them as partners, not competitors. And that's
Absolutely.
just the way that Alpha Shares functions. So, they're not wanting Famco to fail, but there's some red flags and there's some just things to be cautious about for sure. So, quarter mile, we kind of already talked about this. What's the risk long term? Yeah, BTC having better hardware available in the future, the economics of increased popularity of mining there, etc. Yeah, I mean, certainly there's those types of things. One thing I'll say with cheap electricity, one risk that you don't have as much is the price of Bitcoin going down, because as people turn off their miners, the difficulty goes down, and it's the people with the cheap power that keep their miners on. So that's not as much of a risk. That power cost is so crucial. Maybe there's a lot of unknowns and moving pieces for sure. But we talked about the risks earlier. I'll get the recording of this available with the chapters put in. You can listen to that. So maybe last question here, and then we will wrap up. Eli says, will rewards last forever? Is that kind of the plan? As these just go on in perpetuity?
That is the plan. So the plan is, I mean, as long as we can mine Bitcoin for, we're going to continue to provide those rewards. The antimony side of things as well. That's something that is a very long-term business. There's no reason to assume that it's going to last a short period of time. So yeah, really in perpetuity, as long as our operations are up and running, we will be providing wrapped Bitcoin claimable rewards for our NFT holders. Even to answer the last question too, because it's kind of related to this, is the Bitcoin halving. It is coming up in 2024, but every single time we've seen a halving, and so if we go off probabilities, we have to assume that it will happen again. Is that shortly after, about 90 days after the halving, we see new all-time highs for Bitcoin. And so if that's the case, sure, the reward per block gets cut in half, but if the price of Bitcoin doubles, then mining is just as profitable. So that's really what we're looking at. And again, as James even said too, the lower your power cost, the better your break even is. And so when Bitcoin halving happens, break even will go up. And so if the break even right now for some people is $25,000 Bitcoin, when the halving happens, it's going to be much higher than 25,000. And so it creates a really unique dynamic where the moment that happens, if Bitcoin is still at those levels, a lot of people have to turn off their miners, which makes it very profitable for other people. And for the people that know that they are no longer profitable in their location, well, what do? They turn off their miners, they sell their equipment, and they buy Bitcoin because they know that they will make more money taking their equipment value, putting it into Bitcoin, and riding the price appreciation of Bitcoin versus mining the Bitcoin. And so that's often what we see when there's a big shift in a halving is people liquidate their equipment and just buy a shitload of Bitcoin. And so we can only assume the same thing will happen here. So we're very well positioned. A halving is actually more of an exciting event than anything because it's a scarcity event. And so people think about it in a negative way, but it is actually genuinely making Bitcoin much more valuable.
Yep. And that's what we, like you said, that's what we've seen with the other halvings. Is it's made the price of Bitcoin go up. Difficulty goes down for a little bit. The price of Bitcoin goes up. Eventually, the difficulty works its way back up, and it's what the cycle we've seen. So hopefully that continues. So we're gonna go ahead. We will wrap up there. Again, if you have more questions, please do hop in the Discord. I know they would love to answer any and all questions. Are welcome. Very transparent. I've never had a question that I've asked where they've been like, oh, sorry, we can't tell you. So that's good. A lot of transparency there. If you're wanting to mint your own, they're 1,000 USDC. You can work out an OTC deal if you're wanting to do 1,000, BUSD or something like that. I'm sure they'll work with you. You can mint with the credit card. Again, here's the website to go ahead and mint. But I want to thank first the audience. Thank you guys. This is my last AMA for a few days. I'm going to be in Dubai for the next week or so. So I will not see you guys for a bit. But this is a great way to end before my trip.
What's going on in Dubai?
So there's a project called GS Partners, who I have said is potentially Ponzi-nomic based. And they said, hey, let's bring you out to our headquarters and stuff, and let's talk through this. So, and by the way, I want to say that is the right way to handle skeptical investors. I'm cool. Skeptical about a lot of projects, and some projects, I'll even name it. I'm skeptical about Drip, right? But they went to just attacking me about everything. Instead of GS Partners, I attacked in a similar way. I said, hey, I think it's Ponzi-nomics. This is what I think's going on. And instead of just making memes and just saying, oh, you're such an idiot, they said, hey, we're going to fly you out. We're going to answer all your questions. We're going to show you some of our numbers and make you comfortable being an investor. And that's for project owners. That's the right way to handle skeptical investors: is inform, educate, don't insult, because then they're definitely not going to want to be an investor. So that's what I'm going to be doing the next week. Yeah,
that is very cool. I definitely agree with that. And we're going to have to fly you out to Paraguay now so that you can see our operations firsthand.
I love it. Maybe I need to call you guys a Ponzi or something, and then you guys will have to.
I guess you got to incentivize us. Put that fire into our butt.
I know. Well, from my eyes, I see no Ponzi-nomics involved in this. There's clear revenue streams, and I look forward to going down to Paraguay and kind of showing that on film, even. So looking forward to that.
Absolutely.
So audience, thank you guys. Appreciate you guys very much. Please hit like on the way out. And Tyler, thank you as always for hopping on, for building something in this space, in this bear market. Maybe we're kind of on the verge of a transition. Who knows what's going to happen, but appreciate you guys building, being transparent, and look forward to keep working with you going forward.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, James, for having me back up on the stage with you. It's always a pleasure being on this AMA, especially the live ones. I think the last one we did was recorded, and so the live ones are a lot more fun.
Yeah, they are.
I was a little bit tired when I first got on. Just stayed up a little bit too late last night, and then also didn't sleep well for some reason. My dog was just trying to sleep on top of me the whole night. So I do appreciate you having me on this morning, and can't wait for the next one. Definitely gonna have to have you down in Paraguay, take some content, especially as we're
awesome. It was the excitement of knowing I'm going to be on the James Pelton channel tomorrow, and just that excitement wouldn't let the adrenaline wouldn't let your body sleep. I know how it goes. Don't worry about it.
That, and then also the allergies were like, I'm excited, but then my allergies were like, okay, you're going to be on James Pelton tomorrow. I'm going to make you sniffle. So, right. You never get best of both worlds. Never.
That's right. So, well, hey, don't work too hard. Make sure you get enough sleep to make sure you take care of yourself as well. Okay.
Thank you, James. And thank you to the audience as well.
Yep. Take care, everybody. Hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.